Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
What does it take to survive in the beef industry? We'll share profit-building advice from educational sessions at Cattlemen's College. Plus, we'll talk world beef trade with Phil Singh of the U.S. Meat Export Federation.
Now, from the Denver headquarters of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, it's NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. NCBA's Legislative Conference is a one-of-a-kind event that allows cattle producers like you and me a chance to learn about the key issues impacting the beef industry while connecting with policymakers in Washington, D.C. Next week, we're bringing you a special episode of Cattlemen to Cattlemen that will focus on this important event. Here's Russell Nemitz with a preview of what you'll see.
Every spring, cattlemen and cattlewomen from across the country come here to Washington, D.C. for the NCBA's Spring Legislative Conference. Why? Well, to hear important updates on big issues impacting today's beef cattle industry. Now, with us on the program today is Jerry Bone, the NCBA's Policy Division Chair from Pratt, Kansas. And Jerry, tell folks at home why it's so important to have boots on the hill back here in our nation's capital.
Russell, there's a lot of things going on in Washington, D.C., many issues that are affecting the beef and cattle industry, and it's important that we get cowboys back here to meet with our congressmen and our senators and really let them know what they're doing, how it impacts us in the country. And also, while we're here, we're going to be interacting with many of the departments that regulate our industry, and we're going to hear updates certainly about the ELD on the trucking and the hours of service and several other issues that'll affect the industry.
Absolutely. Again, this year, over 250 cattlemen and cattlewomen attended the NCBA Spring Legislative Conference here in Washington, D.C. Be sure to tune in next week for a full recap on some of those big issues that Jerry just mentioned, like ELDs, hours of service, what's in the Farm Bill for the cattlemen and cattlewomen, and Endangered Species Act modernization. Reporting from Washington, D.C., I'm Russell Nemitz for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Meanwhile, U.S. beef exports are off to a great start in 2018, building on the record numbers we saw just last year. According to data released by USDA and compiled by the U.S. Meat Export Federation, beef exports totaled more than 105,000 metric tons in January. That's up 9% year over year, while export value surged 21% to $624.4 million. We also see U.S. beef demand continuing to gain momentum in Asian markets, with exports to Japan up 7% and exports to South Korea up 13% from last January. Exports to China, which resumed last June after a 13-year absence, hit a new monthly high of 819 metric tons, valued at $7.5 million. For the first time in more than 20 years, the world's premier gathering of red meat industry leaders is coming to the United States. Here to tell us more about the World Meat Congress is USMEF CEO Emeritus Phil Singh. Phil, it's a big convention coming to Dallas later this year. Tell us, what exactly is the World Meat Congress?
Well, the World Meat Congress is hosted every other year, and it's under the auspices of the International Meat Secretariat. And the International Meat Secretariat is made up of about 40 different countries who are major exporters and importers of product, of U.S. beef, pork, and lamb. And they share information as far as production, information as far as what the economics outlook looks like. It's a very trade progressive organization, so they're looking at the architecture of trade, bilateral agreements and multilateral agreements and regional agreements, and where's all this going. And they project far into the future, so they're looking at the future of the consumers and where they're going to be. And I think for the United States, it's very special because, we're constantly trying to extol our virtues as far as production agriculture. And this is an opportunity for us to showcase to the world the U.S. example of U.S. agricultural production. So there's going to be not only the meetings, but post-convention tours to ranches and places that they'll be able to see and really understand what is U.S. agriculture and what it means as far as feeding this growing world.
That's fantastic. And why do you think it's so important that this Congress is here in the United States? What makes that so special?
Well, I think the real key thing is that we have an opportunity to really showcase our methodology, our approach to U.S. agricultural production. And as I mentioned, we are very science-based. A lot of people are not. They're very risk-based, or they're very precautionary as far as the principles and these types of things. So this is an opportunity for us to really show the whole fabric of our U.S. production, and also our processing and the food safety that's inherent within our processes. So it's an opportunity to really showcase U.S. agriculture for what it is.
You mentioned so many countries, some of which are customers, but some of which frankly are competitors. And what's the value of bringing both customers and competitors together in one meeting?
Well, I think it is important from time to time to bring in your competitors as well as your customers, because a lot of our competitors are also what I would call our customers. I mean, we look at Australia, we export to Australia, they're a major competitor. Canada is a competitor, but it's also a major customer. Mexico is a competitor, but a major customer. So there's a word that we've kind of coined at MEF called cuspetitors. In other words, they're customers, but they're also competitors. And in that, we can really work a lot of these things out. But we do have a lot of things in common. Everybody wants safe food. Everybody's concerned about health and nutrition. Everybody's concerned about sustainability. So these are some of the subjects. And of course, the future of consumers. Where are we going when we have the Amazons, we have all the changes that are going on in retail and food service. So this is an opportunity to share, to gather information, and I think it really helps to afford the U.S. industry especially a peak opportunity when it comes to what's going on in the world.
That's great. We saw record exports last year. What's your sense? Can we go higher?
Yes, we can. And I think that if we take a look at the numbers for for January, and also just numbers this morning from Japan, we're looking next year at basically about a 7% increase as far as volume and about an 8% as far as value. So as long as we're growing in international exports faster than we're producing, which we are, we're taking product off the market. And so I think that, again, the export factor is going to be a huge dividend to producers, especially this year. And we're approaching close to $300 per fed slaughter. That's that dividend of the export market. So it's real, and it's very, very important to the producer, especially today.
And there's been lots of talk in the news lately about trade and tariffs and so forth. I guess the first question I would have for you is around the bilateral agreement that we recently signed with Korea. I assume that's good news for the beef industry. Is that right?
Well, it is. And I think the key thing that we were concerned about from the beef industry standpoint would be the fact that we have a good agreement already with Korea, where we have liberalization going. The duty was at 40%. It's going to be down to 0 in the year of 2026. For some people, that's not soon enough, but it is very important because we were able to preserve that, and also we have indexed in that because we did the agreement before we did it with Australia. We have an advantage as far as our duty situation when it comes to Korea. I think there's still some questions we have. Number one is we're still at 30 months as far as that index, and so we'd like to see all cattle, all ages be applied to the Korea market. We have certain variety meats, certain eligible items that are not eligible at this point in time that we have eligible to other countries. We'd like to see that rectified. We still have limits on our processed beef that we can ship to the market, and so like corned beef and some of these things. So there are things here that still details that we need to understand, but obviously we're enthused that this has gone forward, and we're enthused that it's not been acrimonious. It's been done in a rather friendly fashion, and that's your major customer, that's very important.
It's critically important. And speaking of customers, obviously there's been lots of consternation in the markets recently because of President Trump's announcements of the tariffs that he is leveling in the aluminum and steel industry and what repercussions it might have for all of agriculture. I want to ask you the question specifically the beef industry. What implications do you see of these tariffs, and should we in the beef industry be concerned?
Well, I think we should be concerned because usually it's agriculture that gets the first hit when there's any kind of retaliation, or if there's anything done in the industrial sector, it's usually the agricultural sector that feels the brunt of it. And so I'm very concerned about how this could play out, not only with China, But obviously with Mexico and some of the other markets that's going on, if you have a cessation of trade or even a slowdown in trade in China, that means we're probably going to redirect product to other markets and other destinations. When you do that, then there's concerns about a surge in products, and then there can be surges in dumping. We had, for example, a safeguard mechanism kick in Japan last year. And so I think that we have to always be vigilant as far as what any kind of repercussions would be coming from some of these actions that, even though it's not at all related to agriculture, we sometimes feel the brunt of it. And I think I would just have to say that when it comes to protectionism, that's the enemy of producers. We definitely need these open markets, free markets, and we have to continue to extol the virtues of free trade.
Yeah, I think we've seen that demonstrated in the cattle markets this last year. And
exactly.
so again, I want to say thank you to you and the entire USMEF staff for all you've done to build demand for our product around the globe.
Yeah, well, the world loves our product, and I think that we've done a great job of extolling the virtues of our product. And it's just really thrilling to take a look at what the future holds, because there's still a lot of growth out there when you take a look at it.
That's good news. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
As Phil mentioned, the World Meat Congress is a one-of-a-kind event. It runs from May 30th through June 1st in Dallas, Texas. You can find details on registration and lodging, as well as a complete schedule of events at the website 2018wmc.com. Still ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll look at how the Federation of State Beef Councils helps put checkoff dollars to work to promote U.S. beef worldwide. Plus, we'll talk with the executive director of the Minnesota Cattlemen's Association about the value of a strong state and national partnership. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Say goodbye to your toughest pasture and rangeland weeds for good. Because one product offers season-long control, handles the widest spectrum of broadleaf weeds, and clears the way for increased forage with greater grazing flexibility. So you get more beef per acre at a cost that can't be beat. It's Graze On Next HL herbicide, and if it's in your pastures, plain and simple, weeds won't be.
What does it mean to be an American cattleman? It means you have what it takes where it counts, on the inside. At Ritchie, we understand that. It's what's on the inside that defines us. We share the same values: ingenuity, commitment, sense of pride. These are the values that built this country. They're the values that built this company. Ritchie, proud to be a partner to the American cattlemen since 1921.
The Federation of State Beef Councils has a long history of building beef demand through an effective state and national checkoff partnership. We're pleased to have with us Don Caldwell today, who was recently elected as chair of the Federation for NCBA. Don, tell viewers just a little bit about yourself and your involvement in the beef cattle industry.
Sure. Our family has a cow-calf operation, south central Nebraska, very north central edge of Kansas. We are a 150-ish cow-calf herd, commercial. Let the kids use some for their FFA projects. So we're just a true family operation, and really enjoy beef and the beef business and the people in the beef business.
So tell folks specifically about your role as the chair of the Federation of State Beef Councils.
Sure. First of all, it's a very humbling honor to get to do this. Throughout all beef councils across the United States, there are about 700 members, and we have 42 or 3 qualified state beef councils, depending on the year and what states can afford to invest. And to represent and lead on behalf of all of those is really cool. We're the true, like you said, state-national partnership, grassroots piece of the puzzle.
So why is Federation so important to the beef cattle industry?
So this is where producers elected by their states get to have that say-so in how their dollars get invested. And coming from Nebraska, we have a lot of cattle and not very many people. So from the perspective of a state like us, it makes so much sense to pool our money together with other states like ours that do have a lot of cattle and create big, effective projects where the population lies, more so than in Nebraska. Nebraskans typically eat a lot of beef anyway.
Exactly.
So to be able to spread that money to more metropolitan areas and promote our product and do really big, effective research projects is good for the whole industry, for every producer.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you more about that. Can you give some tangible and very specific examples of how the Federation cooperates and collaborates with individual state beef councils to pull off projects like that?
Sure, and it starts with something as simple as helping to create advertising materials, brochures, helping with states' websites, so there's the one-on-one work that can happen and allow states to have less staff, if you will, at the state level, because we have a good collaborative effort happening through our national office, so we can create and carry forward a common image and a common message. And then when we think about something as recent as this fall, relaunching the Beef It's What's for Dinner campaign, 25 years old now, but giving it that whole fresh look and an excitement and enthusiasm and a really fun message that touches the hearts of producers, but really carries a fun message to consumers, reminding them that it's fun to eat what tastes good.
Absolutely.
And what tastes good can be good for you as well. And then also in some health and nutrition research, food safety research, states are able to carry that out at their level with their local dietitian groups, with local women's groups, or whoever it is that they may be speaking in front of or carrying messages to through their radio and TV locally. That's
fantastic. And we talk at this meeting quite a lot about the growth in cow herd numbers, and 3 or 4% increase in our product. How does what you at the Federation and state beef councils do to help grow demand for our product?
Right. So one, we always remember we always consume what we grow, but we want to keep the producers in mind. So as we do grow that herd, we want to keep a strong demand so that we can keep value in our pockets. We need people to realize domestically here in the U.S., where we have so many different food choices, that beef doesn't need to be at the center of the plate, but it sure should be an ingredient, both for taste and nutrition. And then our real strength right now and opportunity comes from global outreach. So we do have a partner, U.S. Meat Export Federation, as one of our contractors, who does tremendous work for us around the world promoting U.S. product. And so when we combine those two things, it comes down to more dollars in the producer's pocket, whether they're cow, calf, or a feeder.
You've got a big job ahead of you in the next year. I'm sure we'll see you again back here on the show. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
To learn more about the Federation of State Beef Councils, head to ncba.org and click on the Federation tab. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll discuss some of NCBA's many producer education programs. Don't go away, we'll have more right after this.
If you're connected with the beef cattle business, then you should like the NCBA page on Facebook. The NCBA Facebook page shares photos, news, and valuable information about the beef cattle industry. You can also follow the NCBA Twitter feed at BeefUSA. So stay in touch with NCBA on Facebook and Twitter.
There is a new world out there, revealing itself in unpredictable ways. A world that demands more from the land and those who grow, farm, and build on it. This new world calls for the ingenuity to get more out of it, while preserving as much as we can. After all, to stay ahead of tomorrow, we need to be equipped for it today.
One of the most important things cattlemen and women can do is join the fight to protect our industry by becoming a member of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Here to share her thoughts on the value of NCBA is Ashley Coles. She's the Executive Director of the Minnesota State Cattlemen's Association. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
As a beef cattle producer yourself, what would you say is the primary value for being an NCBA member?
I guess as a beef producer, for me, it's knowing that there is somebody representing me in Washington, D.C. every single day when we are home, doing what we're good at, working on the farm and raising beef cattle. So I think that's the number one reason that we're members. And then number two is the membership benefits that come from NCBA. We utilize those benefits, especially on the equipment side of things, on our farm.
Fantastic. And, membership is one thing, but getting engaged is something else. Why is it so important that people become engaged members of NCBA?
Sure. So there is benefit to having like our friends in DC and also on the state level in St. Paul, our folks that are on the Hill every single day. There's benefit to having them there. But I think there's even more benefit when a cattle producer shows up themselves, right? So nobody can tell your story better than you can. And so engagement is really important. It may not have to be every single day, but having some level of engagement, I think, adds to the success of your membership.
Ashley, on this show, we talk a lot about the state and national partnership and how that works. Tell us a little bit about how you've seen that state-national partnership work in Minnesota.
So I guess my favorite part of the process is grassroots policy development. So seeing policy come from our local or regional cattlemen's groups that come to our state association convention and then eventually elevate up to the national level is really, I think, where that state and national partnership shines. And I think that's my favorite part. And once people actually go through that process and they realize how it actually works, they're hooked too. And I think that helps sell memberships and promote the benefit of the memberships.
And you as a state BQA coordinator as well, can you tell us a little bit about how Minnesota and NCBA works together to deliver that valuable program?
Yeah, so that's a great example of a state and national partnership where the BQA program is a national program but implemented on the state level. So we can take those national standards and kind of make them work for what's happening in our state and how cattle are produced in our state.
I'm guessing you have members in Minnesota who are members of Minnesota Cattlemen but may not be members of NCBA like so many other states. Why, in your opinion, is it important to be members of both the state as well as the national organization?
Sure. So I talk to people about strength in numbers. When we are in Washington, D.C., or even when our legislators are back in states, they do ask a lot of questions. How many people do you represent? How big is the cattle industry in the state of Minnesota? And how many people are actually engaged in our members? And so strength in numbers is a powerful thing when you're talking to legislators.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all you do for Minnesota Cattlemen and all of us around the country, Ashley.
Thank you.
Ashley mentioned some great reasons to become an NCBA member, and another one is a chance to read the National Cattleman. It's the official publication of NCBA and provides timely news and articles about the issues and events affecting the beef cattle industry. A subscription is included free of charge when you become an NCBA member. Just call 1-866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. One other benefit of becoming a member of NCBA is access to many different educational programs that can help your operation become more efficient and more profitable. Joining us now to talk more about these educational opportunities is Josh White. He's the Executive Director of Producer Education for NCBA. Josh, why is producer education such an important priority for NCBA?
Well, a lot of reasons. NCBA, we really seek to bring cattlemen and academics and others together to solve tough issues for the industry. Our DC team does a tremendous job advocating for cattlemen on regulatory and legislative issues in that forum, and we know that's the number one reason most people join National Cattlemen's Beef Association. But we also hear from our members and those considering membership that education is really important to them as part of the value of a membership. So we're committed here to deliver great content to cattlemen in a variety of ways. A lot of folks are familiar with the BQA program, Beef Quality Assurance. We're a contractor to the Beef Checkoff on that. We also have other programs like Cattlemen's College at our convention and Stockmanship and Stewardship. But we're looking to do more for the industry and more things that are available to all producers, whether they make it to one of our conventions or not.
Yeah. So talking about content, let's talk just a little bit about the Cattlemen's webinar series. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's one of those areas where we thought, how can we extend some of this great content that we're developing further? We do a lot of work on Cattlemen's College, on Stockmanship and Stewardship. We're out in the country all the time listening to producers and hearing great speakers, and we thought, how can we extend this more broadly? And the webinar series really is service to the industry. You don't have to be an NCBA member. Obviously, you get more information about upcoming webinars and are more in tune to our series if you're a member, because you're in our communications stream, but it is available to all folks and out there in the country, and we try to do topics that are interesting to most all producers.
So speaking of topics, how do you go about selecting both the topics and the speakers that you're going to have on these webinars?
Yeah, a variety of things. We try to be timely, obviously, as to the season of the year. For the last several years, we've done genetics-focused webinars in the spring to try to keep cattlemen up to date when they're thinking about buying another bull or selecting females to keep for replacement if they've held some yearlings and maybe trying to make some selection decisions. So definitely a genetics focus. This spring we've done a genetics webinar series for the first time with the eBeef team. So that's been highly successful. That was a 4-part series, and all those webinars are recorded, so you can go back and check them out.
Yeah, that is really convenient. And do you design these specifically for any one kind of audience or target group?
Yeah, well, you know, some of them are more topic-oriented, like maybe antibiotic use or changing antibiotic regulations was a big topic for a few years as the VFD Guidance 109 and other things were coming out for the industry, and that affects all cattlemen, right? Some are more business-oriented, geared maybe toward a younger beginning producer, but if you just need a refresher on some business basics, we've done some like that. And then there's those like the genetics series, which are definitely geared more towards seed stock or cow-calf. A feeder might be interested, but they're not likely to make a genetic decision other than what they're buying, right?
You bet. And one last question. Tell us a little bit about the new Cattlemen's Educational Series that you've started.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Brand new program that we've just partnered up with the National Corn Growers Association to step in with a sponsorship where we saw a gap, providing additional resources to our state and breed affiliates to extend education to their audiences. So it's a grant program that our affiliates can apply to for. And we're really excited about it. Again, just to extend more great information, give them the resources they need at the state or breed affiliate level to bring in great speakers.
That's fantastic. And like you say, the beautiful thing about so much of what you're doing is it's not just for those who are able to attend a meeting or attend a webinar. You've got these things recorded. Lots of ways to access this great information. I just compliment you and your team for what you've done in that regard.
Well, we're going to keep trying to get better every day, and just go to the website and visit, look at the Producer Education tab. You can find all that information.
Fantastic. Thank you, Josh. As Josh mentioned, the Cattlemen's webinar series offers an opportunity to get some great information that can help improve your bottom line. For the latest on upcoming webinars or to watch past recordings, visit the webinar series page. You'll find it listed under Producer Education on the NCBA website. That's ncba.org. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll take you inside a Cattlemen's College session that offered tips on how to select better bulls. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Saddle up and make your way to Denver, Colorado for the 2018 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting. This is your chance to stay up to date on beef industry trends and policies. Meet with industry leadership and your fellow cattlemen and women. Plus, you'll get insights on hot topics at the Issues Forums. Mark your calendar for the 2018 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting, August 1st to the 4th in Denver. Find out more at ncba.org.
No matter what job I've got to do, my John Deere 5E tractor can do it all. Whether I'm cutting, moving feed, or building a fence. Using my 5E means my work gets done faster at a price I can afford, and that works for me.
You're watching NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen on RFD TV.
There's no shortage of information available to producers looking for a good bull. But how do you use this data to ensure you're making the best selection for your herd? Lane Nordland has more on a Cattlemen's College session that offered practical advice on the bull selection process.
That is right. At this year's 2018 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, attendees were able to soak up the sun outside at the Aeroquip Livestock Handling Arena. And one of the presenters was talking about bull selection and helping folks make better selection decisions out on the ranch. And joining us here today is Mr. Shane Bedwell with the American Hereford Association. And Shane, what were some of those topics you discussed with the nation's cattlemen and women here in Phoenix?
Very fortunate to have the opportunity to come to the convention this year and present in Cattlemen's College. I actually talked 2 seminars and went through 2 seminars today. The first one was on structural soundness and trying to make better selection decisions, whether it's on the female side or on the bull side when it comes to feet and leg structure, overall athleticism. And then the second topic was tying that phenotypic selection of bulls in with EPDs and the genetic component and making an overall very informed decision.
Now, Shane, the stands were filled for your demonstrations. What were some of the main questions being asked by attendees?
Yeah, and so a lot of it was, how does this work in my operation? How can I take back what we've learned and kind of fit in my own operation? And I think that's the number one question that each and every producer needs to kind of figure out is what production setting, what marketing goals do they have, how do they sell their calves, do they sell them at weaning, do they retain ownership, do they keep back females, and that dictates what kind of traits or the genetic selection tools that they need to use within their program. But the one thing, the grounding thing that we have, no matter what production setting, is structural soundness. That overall functionality of the animal, whether you're a terminal operation or you're a maternal operation or dual purpose, those bulls have to hold up. Those females need to be correct in their feet and last a long time.
Shane, thanks for sharing a little bit on your presentation that was held during the Cattle Industry Convention. And for our friends at home that are interested in learning more about the 25 years of Cattlemen's Colleges, visit ncba.org. Back to you, Kevin.
For 25 years, Cattlemen's College has been the #1 choice for producers looking for the best profit-building advice. Russell Nemitz caught up to Dr. Gary Smith of Colorado State University to get his thoughts on how cattle producers have used the knowledge shared at Cattlemen's College to make a difference for themselves and the beef cattle industry.
Well, it's hard to believe, but 2018 actually marked the 25th anniversary of Cattlemen's College during the annual Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show. And here in Phoenix this year, one of the presenters was Dr. Gary Smith. And before we talk about your presentation, Dr. Smith, I want to visit with you about Cattlemen's College because 25 years is a pretty awesome milestone, and you've been a big part of most of those 25 years.
Well, I did. I started probably 20-something years ago. What's really remarkable is the attendance at the meetings, the interest of people. I think we're working with a population of people who really is hungry for information. They're wonderful listeners. So I just think it's been a wonderful program.
You can really see it in their faces, and they are really tuned in to what the different presenters are talking about. And it's kind of fun for those of us not sitting in those seats to see that they are interested in learning about something new that they might not be thinking about back home every day.
Absolutely, and I think they really have highs and lows. Things seem to please them, other things seem to challenge them. It's also wonderful to have people sitting in the audience that I know through personal experience have forgotten more about this than I know and be able to use them when the question gets too tough.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about this year's presentation from you because you addressed capturing maximum value in beef cattle production. What was the message behind your presentation this year?
Well, it was all based upon a talk that Chuck Lambert had given. Chuck used to be at the NCBA. He was an economist, and he did a study called Lost Opportunities. And so I was asked to do an update 38 years later on whether or not we'd made any progress since he identified all these areas that we needed to improve. Had we actually improved? I'm not an economist, so Dr. Dustin Pendle, who's at Kansas State University, a good friend of mine, did all the economics part of it. But we were able to determine that we are making progress. We have saved some money. It's a substantial amount of money. And the other thing is, the more people look at this, the more they'll recognize this is the path. This is the path that I need to take to become more profitable as an individual producer and for the beef supply chain to actually improve in general.
So what are some of the things we've made progress on and kind of got out of that old mindset of we're just raising cattle? But a big one, I think, has been we're actually raising a pretty important food product for consumers.
Absolutely, and we're putting more of it into the grades prime and choice, which really helps us from a consumer satisfaction level. We're taking care of a lot of the little errors we make in management when we create things that will cause pieces of it, byproducts or the carcass itself, to be condemned or to be graded down. So they're making some really small looking changes that add up over a whole industry or over the population that's managed by that particular person. So we're making lots of small improvements. We still need to work very hard on reproductive performance. We need to work really, really hard on preventing calf death prior to the time they actually go into the packing plant. But we're doing a really, really good job in the middle of this system.
How important is it, Dr. Smith, for all of us in the beef cattle industry to not just worry about what we're doing on our particular place, but kind of setting the next guy up down the supply chain for success as well?
I think early on, BQA kept saying, don't be on an island. You can't operate in this beef supply chain if you're going to stay on your little island. We've all got to share information. We've got to help each other do the things that are right. And just because the packer will benefit or the feeder will benefit, I don't want to precondition because all of the advantages to the feeder. I don't want to not bruise because all the advantage to the packer. And I don't think we have that mindset anymore. I think more people are thinking in the whole of the supply chain rather than my little part of it.
And of course, a big part of that is always keeping that end user, the consumer, whether it's here in this country or somewhere else around the world, top of mind wherever you're raising this protein at.
Absolutely. You've got to satisfy the people that are going to buy, sell, or eat it.
Well, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time for us, Dr. Smith, on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Thank you.
All right. And some sound advice, as always, from our good friend, Dr. Gary Smith. Kevin, with that, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
Another place to go if you're looking for great educational content is the spring edition of Directions Magazine. Inside, you'll find management and producer education articles, including a complete roundup of the recent Cattlemen's College. Directions is NCBA's semi-annual publication that you get free with an NCBA membership. If you'd like to receive a copy, just call 1-866-233-3872, become a member, and we'll send you the magazine right away. We're not done talking about Cattlemen's College. Still ahead, we'll take a closer look at a session that offered tips from some producers on how to navigate the ups and downs of the beef business. Plus, we'll check in with the always entertaining Baxter Black. Stay with us.
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining NCBA. When you join, you'll have access to key policy updates and insights from Beltway Beef. It's the best way to hear directly from NCBA's DC team. Beltway Beef provides valuable policy information, and it's free for NCBA members. Stay in touch with Beltway Beef. Join now at ncba.org.
Well, I think a rancher has to be a steward of the land. There's nobody else that can take care of land better than a rancher. When we switched over to the Purina products, it was a step in the right direction.
The difference we see in the cattle is the consistency of their nutrition.
The cattle hold their condition a lot better throughout the whole year.
It does make a difference that we can see, day in and day out.
Throughout my years raising cattle, I've always found great value in listening to others and learning from their experiences, both good and bad. And that's part of the goal of Cattlemen's College each year at the Cattle Industry Convention. The event brings producers together to learn from each other so we can avoid mistakes others have made and find the best ways to stay in the beef business for the long haul. Brian Baxter has more on a Cattlemen's College session focused on survival in the beef business.
From weather to market prices, people who make their living in the beef industry know success requires the ability to overcome a wide variety of challenges. At the 25th Annual Cattlemen's College, one popular session brought together 3 producers from different segments of the industry to share their stories of beef business survival.
I think survival in the beef business is always a timely topic because I think one of the other speakers on my panel mentioned that it's not for the faint of heart and that there's risk always involved in the cattle industry. So, I think it's especially timely this year. There were so many news stories about floods and fires, and I initially thought that I probably wasn't the right person to speak on that topic because we hadn't had a natural disaster. But as I thought about it, the fact that we were a first-generation farm that started basically from scratch and had to obtain financing, cattle, equipment, and land pretty much all simultaneously qualified me to be a survivor.
Lydia Jan was joined in the session by Joe Leathers from the 4 Sixes Ranch in Texas, who talked about the lessons he and his crew learned when facing historic drought that forced the complete destocking of the ranch until rains returned. Jerry Bone of Pratt Feeders in Kansas spoke about navigating risk and the value of personal relationships in the feedlot business, and Lydia shared insights younger producers can consider as they work to build their own place in the beef industry.
I guess the biggest piece of advice I would give would be that you really need to get a lot of experience before you strike out on your own. First of all, you won't be able to get financing if you can't prove that you have a plan and the background and the knowledge to make ends meet and show a profit. So experience working for older, wiser, established operations and getting your feet wet would certainly be the way to get started. And you just pretty much have to be stubborn and confident that you can do whatever you set your mind to with the help of the good Lord.
Jan Family Farms is a past national winner of the Environmental Stewardship Award. And at Cattlemen's College, Lydia pointed out that being a good steward of both the land and the cattle is not only the right thing to do, it can even open up opportunities to grow the business.
There's so many people that are far removed from agriculture these days that I think it's terribly important that we present a good, positive picture of agriculture, whether that be having fences that are maintained and pastures that are weed-free and cattle that look healthy out in the pastures for the general public to see. I think I mentioned earlier that your neighbors and your community's watching what you do all the time, whether you're aware of that or not, and that's provided us with opportunities to expand through long-term leases with folks that are longtime residents of our community that have watched us and thought that we took good care of the land and the cattle and provided us with opportunities to expand that way.
And Lydia believes one other way to help ensure success in the beef business is by continuing to learn from and make connections with other producers from across the industry.
I've always enjoyed coming to NCBA convention and especially the Cattlemen's College part of it because so often the speakers are producers just like myself, and you can get so much knowledge and insight just from listening to other people's experiences.
From the 25th Annual Cattlemen's College, I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Beef producers spend lots of time and money evaluating genetic potential when they're making breeding decisions. Let's toss it out to Lane Nordlund one more time for a look at a Cattlemen's College session that focus on some of the genetic selection tools that are already available to producers.
During the 2018 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, NCBA celebrated 25 years of Cattlemen's College is brought to you by Zoetis. And many cattlemen and women were able to attend multiple cattlemen's workshops, but of course one of the highlights was talking about genetic technologies. And one of those presenters at this year's Cattlemen's College was Dr. Matt Spangler from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And Dr. Spangler, what was the overview of the topics you discussed with cattlemen and women and why it's important to really invest in genetics today and looking towards the future?
Well, we've seen considerable evolutions in genetic selection tools, from really extending the list of traits from which we have EPDs, and also thinking about investigation into novel traits, maybe things to do with the microbiome or the rumen bacteria, to feed efficiency, fertility, healthfulness of the beef product. So potentially a long list of traits yet to come. I think genomics obviously has helped us improve the accuracy of EPDs on young animals, and there's going to be considerable evolutions there as well in terms of the way we utilize that technology. And of course we have gene editing as a potential option. Unfortunately, through regulations, the fact that FDA treats that as a new animal drug really limits or hampers our ability to fully capture that value. I think for seed stock producers, they need to stay abreast of the changes in genetic selection tools and methods. For commercial cattle producers, I think the fundamentals are still in place. Understand what your breeding objectives are, understand what EPDs and selection indices are, and utilize them.
Now, Dr. Spangler, how do producers that maybe attended the Cattlemen's College, it's a great example of how there's a cross-collaboration between associations like the NCBA and land-grant universities, but how can producers look at genetics differently? What is one thing that they could do a little differently in looking at their genetic selection out on their ranches?
Well, I think one is it starts with truly identifying what traits are economically relevant. If you're a commercial producer, understanding what the drivers of profit are. If you're a seed stock producer, you should stop thinking about selling bulls and think about selling genetics. And bulls are just simply the vector that carries the genetics.
Well, Dr. Spangler, thanks for joining us here today. Again, Dr. Matt Spangler with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, one of those presenters at the 25th Annual Cattlemen's College. Kevin, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Lane. Now, if you were unable to attend the 25th Annual Cattlemen's College in Phoenix, or if there was a class you simply missed that you really wanted to see, the good news is all the sessions were recorded and will be available for viewing online. Just visit ncba.org for all the details. Still ahead, it's time for a visit with our good friend Baxter Black. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Don't miss your chance to read the National Cattlemen. It's the official publication of NCBA, and it's packed with timely news and information about the issues and events that affect your cattle business. Plus, the National Cattlemen includes producer education, cattle market insights, and more. A subscription is free when you become a member of NCBA. Join now by calling 866-233-3872 or on the web at ncba.org.
When a new calf hits the ground, his clock starts ticking. A belly full of colostrum gives him his best odds, but if he doesn't get any, his time starts running out. That's when you grab a bag of Oxford Ag Colostrum in their patented feeding system. Fill them with warm water, shake it to mix, feed it with a tube or nipple, and you are done. No bucket, no bottle, no mess, and right on time. Get yours at oxfordag.com. Costs less than a dead calf.
Did you know that Prefert makes over 1,000 different farm, ranch, and rodeo items? And now, thanks to Prefert Direct, it's easier than ever before to get access to every item Prefert makes delivered direct to your local dealer. For more information about Prefert Direct, visit us at prefert.com. Prefert, America's #1 name in farm, ranch, and rodeo.
Ooh, howdy. I guess you're wondering about my pickup. My pickup's no different than the average farm truck. It looks like a University of Wyoming archaeological dig. I never wash it. My friend Lane learned his lesson the hard way, though, and it never would have happened if they hadn't opened a brand new car wash in Yreka, Oklahoma. On grand opening day, there was cars backed up all the way to Wichita Falls. It was noon by the time he finally reached the entrance. He let his wife and dog out there at the curb and pulled up to the long, dark tunnel. He sat there a moment, enjoying the peace and marveled at the modern technology. He remarked to himself how powerfully efficient and foolproof this machinery is. It's amazing, he said to himself. That was about the time the big blue whirling dervish dropped into the bed of his pickup. It sounded like a chainsaw ripping through a 55-gallon drum. Buckets, paint cans, and an airplane wheel sailed out into the street like depth charges. Horseshoes, old bolts, pieces of a disassembled lawnmower carburetor, nails, and a socket set filled the air like machine gun fire. The big brush squealed in pain as a steel fence post went through the observation window. Well, thank goodness the unit shorted out before the attendant could call 911. Lane spent the next 4 hours peeling 300 yards of baler twine, 12 foot of hog wire, a log chain, 2 nylon halters, and a 35-foot rope out of the big whirling blue brush. And by the time he got to sweeping out the bed of the pickup, all of the co-op dog food had melted and dissolved in with a half a bale hay and the dead leaves, and he just hosed her all out of the road. Man, I said, I guess you learned your lesson. He said, well, I still run it through the car wash, but I've installed an automatic warning device. I said, what's that? Oh, he said, I just leave the dog in the back. This is Baxter Black. From out there.
Thanks, Baxter. I guess car washes and work trucks can often be a bad combination. We'll be back with more right after this.
Do you know all you need to about working cattle? Did you know there are proven methods that can reduce stress for the animals, for you and your crew? Now there's an easy way for you to learn from the experts who can help sharpen your stockmanship and stewardship skills. In interactive sessions, you'll learn better ways to work cattle more efficiently, skills that can help put more money in your pocket. Find out more and locate an upcoming event near you at the website stockmanshipandstewardship.org.
Welcome back. If you're a viewer of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'd like to hear from you. If you have questions or comments or even a story idea for us, drop us an email and we may use them on a future show. Send us your thoughts at our email address. That's c2c@beef.org. And you can always reach us and NCBA through the website ncba.org. Now it's time once again for Legacy Photos, as we share with you some of the great shots submitted by our viewers all across the United States. Let's take a look. Want to see your photo on Cattlemen to Cattlemen? You can submit your favorite shots a couple of different ways. Either message them to us on the Cattlemen to Cattlemen Facebook page or email them to c2c@beef.org. Include your ranch or farm name and your hometown, and we may use them on a future episode. Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.